He opened the door at 2:47 in the morning and found a woman bleeding onto his marble, holding a secret between her teeth. Not a metaphor, a literal secret. A black USB drive clamped between her teeth, like the last thing she trusted in this world. Because it was. Her name was Zola, and she had not come to his door by accident. Seojun stood in the frame of his private residence in the heart of Seoul and looked at her for exactly 3 seconds. 3 seconds to take in the blood soaking through her blouse, the rain matting her hair flat against her face, the way her amber-dark skin had gone ashen at the edges, the way her hand was pressed against her right side with the kind of pressure that means a person already knows the damage and is simply refusing to negotiate with it. 3 seconds. Then he stepped aside and let her in. He could not explain why. Not that night, not to himself, not to the version of himself that had spent 15 years building a life around. Never opening a door he hadn't vetted first. He had a rule about this entrance. He had answered it 3 times in 4 years, once for a delivery, once for surveillance disguised as a woman, once for a man who was dead before sunrise. He had told himself he was finished answering, but she had looked up at him through the rain and the blood and the haze of someone running on the last fumes of conscious will, and her eyes had been steady, not performing strength, actually having it. And something in Seojun, something he kept locked in the same place he kept his mother's photograph and the folded kente cloth flower in the glass case in his study, recognized that steadiness and could not turn away from it. So he let her in, and in doing so, without knowing it yet, he had already chosen a side in a war he didn't know had started. Welcome to the Velvet Empire. Stay close. This one is going to cost something. He dressed her wound himself, on the bathroom floor, with the kind of quiet precision that told her immediately. This was not his first time. He didn't flinch, didn't ask unnecessary questions. His hands were steady and deliberate, and when the pain made her breath go sharp, he simply paused, waited, continued. Like a man who understood that some things cannot be rushed, only endured. When it was done, he sat back against the wall. She was propped against the bathtub. The USB drive sat on the tile floor between them. Neither of them looked at it. "Who sent you here?" he said. "I was given an address," she said, low voice, British accent underneath the exhaustion. "This was the address. Who gave it to you?" A pause that had its own texture. "I don't give names." He studied her. She studied him back with the same flat attention, and he realized she was doing exactly what he was doing. Reading him. Not for danger, for truth. Trying to determine whether he was the kind of man who would hold her silence against her or respect it. "You've been shot," he said. "I noticed. And you're protecting the person who may have sent you here to die." She said nothing, but something crossed her face. Brief, controlled, then gone. Not fear, something older than fear. The specific expression of a person who has been betrayed enough times that they've stopped being surprised by it, but haven't yet stopped being hurt. He stood, turned off the bathroom light. "Guest room is at the end of the hall," he said. "Don't touch the drive until I tell you to." She looked up at him from the floor. "You were never going to call the police," she said. Not a question. "No. Why not?" He was already in the doorway. "Because whoever shot you," he said quietly, "already knows where you are." He sat at his desk for the next 40 minutes with the USB drive on the glass surface in front of him, and did not touch it. His phone rang twice. Both times it was his father's number. He let it ring. This was the thing about Seojun that people misread. They saw the charcoal suits, the controlled stillness, the way he never raised his voice even when the room was demanding it, and they assumed he was cold. He wasn't cold. He was careful. There is a difference. Cold people Don't feel the weight of a decision before it's made. Seojun felt everything. He simply did not perform it for an audience. And right now, what he felt, sitting in that chair, was the specific gravity of information he had not yet opened, but could already sense the shape of. 15 years inside the Jang family's financial machine had given him that. The ability to feel the mass of a secret before you name it. Someone had chosen his doorstep. Out of every address in this city, his. That was not coincidence, that was architecture. His phone rang a third time, a different number. Park Ji-hee, his betrothed. The alliance his father had arranged 2 years ago with the Park Empire, Seoul's most powerful financial backers. A political arrangement that had given Seojun the one thing he'd spent his life reaching for. A formal, irrevocable place inside the Jang family structure. A seat at a table he had been half outside his entire life. He let that one ring too. He thought about the woman at the end of his hall. He thought about the drive. He thought about his father's voice on all the missed calls, and the feeling settled in his chest like something solidifying. A slow recognition that had not yet become a word. He picked up the drive, set it down again. He went to bed without opening it. Morning came in gray. The rain had eased into something quieter. Seojun found her already awake, standing at the kitchen window with a glass of water, watching the city settle. She had found one of his shirts, dark gray, oversized, and wore it over her clothes. Her hand was still pressed to her side. The color had come back to her face. He made coffee without asking if she wanted it. Set a cup in front of her. She said, "You have a photograph in your study. A boy standing at a grave. The cloth flower, that's Ghanaian." He went still. "Accra," he said. "Your mother." The silence that followed was long enough to have its own weight. "She died when I was 11. Zola looked at the window, then back at him. "My grandmother used to say, Agbado tiaba jogun ko mandun." A breath. It means inherited corn is never sweet. She said it whenever my father's family tried to tell her what we owed them. Seojun didn't speak Yoruba. He heard the weight of it anyway. They stood in that kitchen in the thin early light, and something passed between them that neither of them named, because naming it would have required admitting it was already real. And both of them lived in worlds where admitting a real thing too early was the fastest way to lose it. Then the front door opened. It was Min Jae, his father's fixer, a man who smiled at everything and meant none of it. He looked at Zola. He looked at Seojun. He smiled. "Your father has been trying to reach you," Min Jae said pleasantly, as if he had not just walked through a private entrance, using a key he had never been given. "I know," Seojun said. "He wants the drive." The room went very quiet. Seojun had not told his father about the drive. He had not told anyone. Which meant his father had known about Zola, about all of it, before she arrived. Maybe before she was shot. Maybe before the address was given to her. The shape of the thing in his chest finally became a word. Betrayal. Not yet fully formed, not yet named out loud, but there, solid, cold. "Tell him I'll call tonight," Seojun said. Min Jae looked at Zola one more time, the kind of look that catalogs a person and files them away, and left. The door closed. Zola said quietly, "He already knew I was here." "Yes. Which means whoever gave me the address was working for my father." Seojun's voice dropped to almost nothing. The angrier he was, the quieter he became. "You were sent here on purpose, to me, specifically." She absorbed that. Her jaw tightened, something recalculated behind her eyes. "Then I wasn't the message," she said. "The drive is." He looked at her. "Open it," she said. "Open it now, before they come back." He opened it. 14 minutes of reading. He sat completely still, the screen light the only movement in the room. Zola sat across from him. She did not ask what he was finding. She already knew. She had broken the only professional rule she'd kept for 7 years. The night she was shot, running through alleys in the rain. She had opened the drive herself. She understood what she was looking at before he did. She had been moving money between empires long enough to read a financial structure the way other people read a face. Jang Hyun-woo, the patriarch, the man Seojun had spent his whole life trying to earn a place beside, had been liquidating Jang family assets for 2 years, moving wealth offshore, preparing to dissolve the entire operational structure and disappear. But he had not done it cleanly. He had forged Seojun's digital signature on 14 transfer authorizations. 14 transactions Seojun had never approved, never seen, never known existed. His own father had built him into the frame, not as a son, as an exit door. When Seojun looked up from the screen, his face was the specific stillness of something that has broken inside a person without making a sound. The kind of break that doesn't announce itself. That simply happens, quietly, in the space between one breath and the next, and then everything that follows is lived in the aftermath of it. "He's been planning this for 2 years, Seojun said. "Yes. And I'm the one left holding it." She said nothing. That silence was its own kind of answer. This is the moment, right here. This is where Seojun understood, not intellectually, but in the body, in the bones, that everything he had been reaching for was never real. The recognition, the seat at the table, the 15 years of building himself into someone the Jang name could not dismiss. All of it had been accepted, with exactly one purpose: to give his father a face to leave behind. He closed the laptop. The room held its breath. Then he said, so quietly it was almost only for himself, "You could have run. You had the drive. You could have sold it and disappeared. Why come here? Why warn me?" Zola looked at him for a long moment. "Because the address I was given was yours," she said. "And when I looked you up, I found that photograph. A boy at his mother's grave in Accra. Alone." A pause. "I don't know. I just thought someone should tell you before it was too late." He looked at the glass case on the shelf, the kente cloth flower inside it. The only object in this apartment not chosen for utility or appearance. He had not taken it out in 4 years. If you are watching this and you have ever poured your whole self into earning a place in something, a family, a relationship, a room that was never going to make space for you no matter how much you gave, and you know the specific feeling of realizing it too late, may you find steady ground tonight. May something in this story reach you and remind you that being used by someone you loved does not make you foolish. It makes you human. And may you find even now the one person who sees all of you and stays. If this story is sitting with you, like, subscribe, and drop amen in the comments if the blessing landed. We are building something here. Stay with us. Seojun made a decision, not loudly, not with ceremony. He simply stood up, opened his laptop again, and began writing a message. Not to his father, not to Minjae, but to every rival empire in the city simultaneously. Attached to that message, the drive's contents, every transfer record, every forged signature, everything, not to the police, to the other empires. Because he understood this world well enough to know that the only thing that could dismantle his father's plan faster than law enforcement was the collective self-interest of every family his father had also been stealing from. Zola watched him type. She said, "You know what this does to the Park Alliance. Yes, Jihye's family will invoke the breach clause. You lose the betrothal. You lose the backing. You lose everything you used that arrangement to secure." He stopped typing for exactly 1 second, then continued. "I lose what I built to earn a place I was never actually given," he said. That's not the same thing as losing everything. She was quiet for a moment. Then, your father will say you betrayed the family. My father forged my name on 14 documents and left me to carry 15 years of criminal liability while he built himself a new life. He hit send. I didn't betray the family. The family was never mine to betray. The message went out at 9:14 in the morning. By noon, Jang Hyun-woo's offshore accounts had been frozen by 3 separate entities, none of them government. By evening, the forged signatures had been verified by 2 independent sources. By midnight, the Jang Empire as it had existed for 30 years was gone. Not with a fight, with an audit. Seojun sat in his study in the silence of it all. Park Ji-hye came in person. She was not cruel. She never had been. She was, in fact, one of the sharper minds he had ever shared a room with. She sat across from him and looked at him the way people look at someone they understand, but cannot save. My father is invoking the clause, she said. I know. Is she worth it? He thought about how to answer that. He looked at the glass case, the kente flower. It's not about worth, he said. I spent 15 years trying to be worth enough for a family that was using me as furniture. I'm done calculating worth. Ji-hye was quiet for a long moment. Then she said very softly, I hope she knows what you just burned down. She left. The door closed behind her without anger, which was somehow the hardest version of that sound. Zola found him later, not in the study but standing at the kitchen window, looking at the city the way she had looked at it that morning. She had her bag over her shoulder, her coat on, ready to move, the way she always was, the way she had been for 4 years of a life designed to leave no footprint. She said, I'm going to Lisbon. I know. A silence. I might go through Accra first. He turned from the window. Your mother's grave, she said quietly. Someone should put fresh flowers, kente ones, the way she used to make them. He looked at her for a long time. She held his gaze, not performing anything, just being seen, letting him see her back. He didn't answer. He didn't need to. The answer was in the way his hand moved, slowly, without urgency, toward the glass case on the shelf. He opened it for the first time in 4 years, took the folded kente flower out, looked at it for one moment. Then he held it out to her. She took it. And that was everything. That was the whole of it. Not a declaration, not a promise. Just a man who had spent his life holding something precious behind glass, finally trusting someone enough to let it exist outside of it. The door didn't close on them, it opened. Sit with this for a moment. Seojun burned down an empire, a betrothal, 15 years of carefully constructed belonging, and he did it in 45 minutes in silence on a Tuesday morning. The question I want to leave you with is this, and I want you to think about it honestly, because there is no right answer here. Was what he did an act of integrity, or was it the most selfish thing he had ever done, wrapped in the language of justice? Because he didn't release that drive to save Zola. He didn't do it entirely for truth. He did it because his father looked at him and saw a tool, and that wound was older than any betrayal on any USB drive. So when a man destroys everything to prove he cannot be used, who is he really doing it for? Drop your answer in the comments. I mean it. I read every single one. If this story reached you, like and subscribe. More is coming. The Velvet Empire doesn't rush, but it always delivers.